time. And when I look to young people across Europe, I know that the future is bright. I am convinced that thanks to Europe, the world.
Noi questo bel
Thank
messaggio.
you.
E adesso vorrei chiedere alla
Thank you for sharing this amazing message. And now I would like to ask Mrs. Francesca Marchetti
ed è parte
to
della Commissione delle Politiche per la
greet us
Salute.
all. She's the president of Emilia-Romagna region, and she's part of the Commission for Health Policies and Social Policies. Thank you very much.
Buongiorno a tutti, intanto grazie per questo invito, vi porto il
On behalf of the Emilia-Romagna regional government.
presiedo e insieme partecipiamo ai lavori della Commissione Politiche Sociali. E è per me veramente importante.
And I am very glad that we can take part in the session of today.
Diverse questioni.
I am glad that I am here because this project concerns different people.
Di fronte credo anche l'importanza di qualificare le professionalità attraverso questo progetto veramente significativo che vede di tanti partner e di coloro che lavoreranno e avranno a che fare con le persone disabili.
And this is a very important project for disabled people. This is the first topic. We want to provide health care for people with disabilities. This is a challenge for the future for our community. And now we have to work in a post-COVID region. We have to imagine it together. This health crisis has shown some aspects we were aware of. And now we need to speed up on certain elements. We need to meet the needs and the requirements of people with disabilities. And then there is a second topic, which is nutrition. Over the past few days, probably you have read that the increase in the poverty rates, as it was stated by Caritas, affects the poorest people, also as far as food and nutrition are concerned. So, for example, in the school canteens, we should be able to provide a correct nutrition also for the poorest people. And of course, this is a topic that concerns everybody. Well-being and education are so important. These are some challenges that we are trying to face as a regional government. We are trying to promote healthcare and sport activities by means of a new social health plan. Next Monday, we're going to talk about certain problems like eating disorders. And we need to talk about other topics like the importance of nutrition and the importance to educate people to eat proper food. So we need to give an answer to problems. And then there is a third element for this project. I would like to thank Mr. Vinigris, who has invited me today. And this is the topic of universities and
I confini della nostra regione.
So competence, research,
sicuramente
connection must go beyond the borders of our. We have to build up a pathway in Europe, so that Europe will be free. We have some challenges
a uno la possibilità
to help our citizens.
le prossime aspettative
Have to give them the abilities to
di vita.
the possibility to express themselves, their talents, their expectations, and their life projects. As far as disabilities are concerned, our region provides lots of opportunities, for example, for education, for sport activities, and so on. So
Questi
that
presupposti
the people who've got disabilities
mettere insieme su tematiche
express their potential. An inclusive
a mettere
society
insieme che tenga anche percorsi formativi uniti e ancorati a
based on the
delle persone. Quindi grazie, vi ascolterò con molta attenzione e complimenti per essere riusciti a dare questa dimensione veramente significativa sui partner ma anche internazionale a questo scambio che credo sia anche nelle linee un po' della regione quando diciamo che l'Emilia Romagna è una regione d'Europa perché crediamo che siamo ancora
significant topics. Emilia Romagna is the reach and enjoy the rest of the session. Thank you.
Tavola rotonda, una tavola rotonda che è centrata proprio.
We can start with our round table that focuses on the importance of nutrition for people who have acquired a disability. Here, some of them are here on the table, some others are connected remotely. The first is Mr. Roberto Piperno. No, due to force majeure causes, I would like to introduce Mr. Paolo Laporta from the Neuroscience Association of Bologna.
Mi sembra di averti presentato in maniera corretta, Fabio.
And look at in English. Fabio, I think I introduced you in the right way. I would like to give the floor to you.
Assolutamente sì, grazie professoressa, grazie.
Thank you very much.
Grazie all'Associazione Ciluca per avermi coinvolto in.
I would like to thank you all for inviting me to take part in this project. This is a fundamental project. And this is a project that is very important. It is the extension of a pathway that we started a while ago. In my presentation, I would like to give you some data. I would like to present a clinical case. And I will talk about the importance of nutrition.
Because the first action we can do is about nutrition. Then we are going to see why during our presentation. I divided the presentation in 3 parts. I'm going to talk about disability, and so I'll describe the clinical case. Then we will see the nutritional aspect of the case, and the third part, I would focus on something that is meaningful because I'm going to discuss the frailty syndrome in the elderly as a model to explain why a good nutrition, and in particular the resolution of nutritional issues, is the most important rehabilitation technique. This is Valentina's case, a 59-year-old lady. October 31st of some years ago, she fell and had a fracture, and then she underwent surgery to the hip. So she started the rehabilitation process in another region, and November the 10th, there is a brain bleeding, a huge brain hemorrhagia. You see the size, so the lady enters into coma. She is taken back to the general hospital, and so she undergoes surgery immediately. There is an evacuation of bleeding, and a craniectomy was necessary. We had to remove a part of the brain, a part of the skull. Otherwise, the situation couldn't improve. 3 days later, a new surgery because the situation worsened. We had to enlarge the craniectomy, and so tracheostomy, and then the ventilator is used, and then after 2 weeks she is transferred to neurosurgery unit in the hospital where she was hospitalized. Then thrombosis, a sepsis, so 2 complications, and then we are going to see why. And then on December the 4th, she is transferred in Bologna again because she comes from Bologna, so she is in the semi-ICU unit at the Ospedale Maggiore after 24 days of this event. So when we have to deal with this kind of patient with CVC, nose and gastric probe and catheter, central venous catheter, we have to deal with all these relevant issues because these actions on the one side is save the patient's life, but on the other side they can be source of infection. So the neurological frame is minimum conscious state. She, of course, was completely dependent in bed, a very severe situation. So the next day there is a CT scan, and then you see the size of the brain compared to X-ray, and we see a bilateral pleural liquid presence, therefore hampering lungs expansion. So this is the starting situation. So first week, December the 4th, so 6 liters of oxygen per minute, and the cough machine is started, and then you have the antibiotic treatment that is suspended. So a very severe situation. And then the next week, sepsis, and with a germal that was resistant to several antibiotics, which is a type of very severe infection. I think that there are no sufficient antibiotics on the market, and the mortality rate is really high. However, with the follow-up X-ray, the pleural effusion got reduced. We could reduce the quantity of oxygen, and we continued with the cough machine. And so after 1 week, the patient is responding to this treatment. So we of course, remove the oxygen breathing, and then we continued antibiotics, and then in the 4th week we stop antibiotics, so she doesn't need the cough machine any longer. And then in the 5th week, no oxygen required, no antibiotics, and now lungs are cleaned up. And we did something else, but I will describe it to you in a minute. From a rehabilitation point of view, we started with a cannula in the minimum conscious state, and we were able to start using the cannula even if there was the sepsis situation. So from the 4th week, something happens. The chest control improves, and then there is the decannulation of the patient, and then the chest is going better and better, and the situation got reduced. Then the patient is stable and is transferred to our which is the Casa dei Risvegli, and this is the situation when the lady was moved to the Casa dei Risvegli, and then after some days we can introduce the mixed nutrition, and the cognitive level improved, and of course it improves a lot, and then the disability indexes improved, and we can now proceed to chronic plastics, which is associated to some failure rates, remarkable failure rates. And then we move to nutrition, and then week 21, the patient is discharged after following up the chest, and then a therapeutical pathway. So from the in-bed position to the position where she could start walking a little bit, making some steps. Is it the end? No, because then we started a local rehabilitation pathway, and this is the starting point. And incredibly, after 12 months, the situation improved, and then there is an improvement in comprehension, and the paresis now concerns only the upper limb. And then 2nd year, the situation still improves, and the 3rd year, and that's the last update I received, because I'm going to follow up on her next month. So now she can walk in-house and also outside with an aid. So this is the clinical case. Now I would like to unveil something that I have hidden to you before. When the patient arrived, she had a terrible malnutrition state. So 2 JVT plus flaxen, so 1,200 calories per day, albumin, which is one of the most important nutrition indexes, which was severely damaged, severely altered, and with this lack of albumin, you have pleuric effusion. So the first day, what did we do? We changed nutrition. So we moved to 2,300 calories and a lot of proteins intake. So during the 2nd week, albumin moved from 20 to 25, and the 3rd sepsis, nutritional proteins are usually eaten up because the body needs to fight infections, and so of course the body does and uses what it has. So thanks to our nutritional intervention, we are now compensating what the body is consuming, is burning, and fifth week, we see the nutritional indexes that are back to normal, more or less. So here we had edema, we had pleural effusions, while here the situation was solved because when the body is well nourished, then liquids remain in place. They do not go around the tissues. And with all this, we also developed a measurement tool based on laboratory indexes to follow up and measure the malnutrition problem, because of course you need to understand if you are acting properly or not. So we use this tool, and this is the trend of nutritional problems. The tool is not published. We sent some data to STEMS a few months ago, but now we saw that there are 5 levels of malnutrition. This is the normal area, and this is death, the deadly area, because here you have a high level of inflammation associated. You see the PCR level, so here the body is completely deprived of any defense. So our patient started from here, so not the worst case scenario, but if we didn't activate a nutritional strategy due to the sepsis, probably we would have entered the deadly area. So despite sepsis, KPC sepsis, you see nutritional indexes improved, and the edema was completely reabsorbed, and they continued to be stable because there was behind the nutritional strategy stopping the worsening of the situation. And so the patient underwent cranioplastics with no sequences. So this is the second part of my presentation, dealing with nutrition. So let's try to combine all these elements and why nutrition is able not only to the rehabilitation process, but saving life as well. So the elderly frailty syndrome is characterized by 5 clinical elements. So weaknesses, slowing down, the reduction of physical exercise, fatigue, and weight loss. From a clinical point of view, these are the indicators measuring these parameters, and we talk about frailty when we have at least 3 criteria. And in general, you can define benign frailty if the first 3 elements are involved, because they are the most reversible. Well, it's a bad frailty if we have a fatigue and loss of weight, because in the elderly they are associated to comorbidities. So it means that maybe behind there is a cancer or something else. And frailty if we only have 2 elements. So the problem of frailty, it's that it is a terrible vicious circle. If we consider these 5 elements, they are intertwined the one with the other in this way. So when you enter the frailty circle, you cannot get out of it unless there is an action correcting one or more factors. Here you see protein calorie malnutrition. The problem of frailty is that you reach a critical level, so there is a lot of balance, you fall down, and then of course you break up a leg or a hip, and this represents a privileged pathway towards disability. And I point out the beginning of the clinical case I described. So the lady was suffering from an eating disorder, so probably she suffered from malnutrition even before the event. At that time, she was 59, but she was already suffering from malnutrition. So our patient, our patient, so how many factors did she have? She had all 5 factors. She didn't move, conscious, slow down in conscious state. She had a problem in breathing, and she was also suffering from malnutrition. So let's focus on malnutrition now only. I think this article, hospital, in every clinics, it is dating back to 2016, and the title is Immune Dysfunction as a Cause and Consequence of Malnutrition. And of course, you can reverse the title if you want. So there is this wonderful diagram. So it means malnutrition reduces defenses. The reduction of defenses. And you have a vicious circle, but with the same logic. And so the more a patient is malnourished, the more infection she has or it has. And then, of course, infections are related to malnutrition, unless there is not a nutritional action changing the situation. So unfortunately, in the healthcare system, and now antibiotics maybe are not the preferred choice. So what happens? It happens that people have a chronic inflammation ongoing for days. So they completely use up the proteins, the nutritional proteins. And so maybe we can avoid administering antibiotics, but for how long? Just for a short time, because in this way we created a worsening of malnutrition, representing an open door to the consequent infection. So there is a vicious circle. And so here you see the final indicators. In case of malnutrition, you have a chronic inflammation, and PCR value is really high. So chronic inflammation, we saw it during COVID.
Lo sfacelo che determina in alcuni casi a causa di questo mediatore, interleuchina 6.
You see the chronic inflammation mediator, which is interleukin 6, which is the same mediator of the elderly frailty syndrome. Interleukin 6 has several actions, so there is a lack of appetite. And this, of course, worsens the situation. But there are elements like, for example, deep thrombosis, coagulation troubles. And I would like to point out 3 elements. So immune suppression, therefore leading to infection susceptibility. And when, of course, you are in an inflammation state, just imagine in what it means for a person with a conscious disorder. And of course, this decreases neuronal growth factors. So in case of such situation, neuroplasticity is blocked. So there is no way of leading a rehab, because the rehab action wouldn't be successful with these conditions. So this is the typical diagram putting in relation aging and the functional state. In case of healthy aging, there is slow down, a very slow decline of functions. In case of an accelerated aging, it goes through the frailty syndrome, which is just the beginning of a frailty situation. But our question is, what happens if we do not have a slow decline, but we have an acute episode because there is a stroke, there is a chronic trauma? So the functional status goes down and moves into disability immediately. So thanks to rehabilitation, we try to improve the situation, but then what happens if we also add a frailty syndrome? The frailty syndrome represents kind of a threshold, an obstacle. And so you cannot progress because the frailty syndrome is linked to the body reaction for all the complications, and so for the rest, there's nothing left. So to conclude, for the clinical case, we have two steps. The first is acute phase that was in the first hospital, and then semi-ICU in our hospital, several complications, one situation of severe malnutrition, which was managed with nutritional treatment and antibiotic part, and also other interventions that are fundamental for defragilization. And the improvement of disability parameters started in the third week when we stopped the chronic inflammation. So that was associated to sepsis, and so at that moment we had an improvement of rehab parameters linked to the conscious state, and so the chest was now controlled again. In the subsequent rehab phase, the patient recovered her defense ability, so no infections occurred, and so we were able to make the surgery, and all this because we focused our attention on the nutrition. And this was very important because even after 3 years from the acute event, the situation of the person improved. So frailty syndrome doesn't hit exclusively the elderly. It can concern any human being, in particular with acute disability or chronic disability. And if it is not treated, the frailty syndrome becomes chronic and it becomes an obstacle for the improvement from a rehab point of view. Malnutrition is probably the most important aspect of the frailty syndrome because it's something we can treat effectively. So the nutrition specialist, the expert in a hospital is fundamental. Because if we do not deal with this problem in the right way, results can be really bad. Malnutrition, if it is not treated, can lead to body immune dysfunction and recurring infections. And so the context of defragilization. Defragilization is the first rehab action. You have to correct nutritional problems. That's the first step. And all the actions fighting against the frailty syndrome, so resolution of malnutrition prevention, and also, mobilizing. So since one of the elements is reduced mobility, so the fact of mobilizing the patient reduces the frailty syndrome. So it must be part of this rehab action. And I conclude by reminding our grandmothers, they always 40. Probably they were right.
Grazie infinite, dottor
Thank you very
Laporta,
much, Mr. Laporta,
illuminante relazione.
for this amazing speech.
Qualora ne avessimo ancora bisogno, di come le competenze
We understood that cross competencies and cross skills are absolutely winning, and the synergy among different professionals can help us solve huge problems as the ones that you have illustrated. And Hippocrates' motto, which is made by Mr. Laporta, who has to catch a plane for the UK. Congratulations again. And Mr. Malaguti to present the Energy project, as well as the first results that we have achieved. The floor is yours. Thank you. We will have a shared presentation, and we would like to present our results. That is about the result of our project that is about to finish at the end of the year. Mr. Laporta's presentation is absolutely amazing. He showed us that in the acute phase, the nutrition intervention plays a fundamental role. And there is something that he said that for this project. So at a certain point, he said that the patient he was treating went back home. And when we say that a patient goes home, we believe that things are done. But for a patient of this kind, we know that in that moment there is a new pathway that starts. And the Association Amici di Luca intervenes in this phase. The Energy project, therefore, belongs to this context. What does it happen? Should it happen in terms of nutrition when our patients are back home? We started out from a consideration. I would like to talk about the history of the project. There was a difference between the competencies that all the professionals in charge of the person with the acquired disability have and our starting point. So we decided, we understood that all the professionals who deal with disabilities are not trained or educated for nutrition, and also professionals of nutrition are rarely trained or educated as far as the disabilities are concerned. So if patients with acquired disabilities need to be supported by a multidisciplinary team, either these professionals talk to each other, or at least they need to understand and know the competencies of the others. So this is the first element that we have analyzed. And we analyzed, first of all, the education pathways of these professionals in Spain, Lithuania, and Italy. Sorry, we're having some minor technical issues. The second and the third goals of the project entailed an e-learning education pathway to fill up this gap that was existing among all the different professionals. So we created an e-learning course with the following architecture. So first, users take a placement test. And this is a test, nutrition and disabilities. According to the results of the test, users had to undergo a first training module describing the main concepts of disabilities, or another module describing nutrition, but users can also follow both of them. And then the course goes on with the 2 additional modules that blend together the information coming from the previous modules. So there is nutrition and acquired disabilities, and this is module 3. And then there is a module 4 that basically tells us that eating habits can be used as a preventive measure. And this is particularly important for disabled people as compared to healthy people. Besides these modules that represent the core of the project, there are some additional modules. They are basically interviews or interventions of different professionals, and basically they talk about how nutrition has helped people with disabilities. And these additional modules were developed in all of our 3 partner countries that are Italy, Spain, and Lithuania. I would like to give the floor to you. Last year, we only mentioned it, but this year we have the real product. We would like to show you some extracts of the e-learning product. And we have some professionals here, so maybe for them it is a bit of a repetition, but for some others it is something new. As Marco was saying, we can register in our platform, and in the website of our project you can still register. Up to December, the platform is going to be open, and then in order to make the project available, we need to understand how to manage it. For example, in Italy, we are thinking about including it in the continuous to make it available to associations of professionals. So it is quite easy to register. And then there are some video classes. This is an example. We're just scrolling it. This is our Lithuanian partner. So the teachers from this course come from the University of Vilnius, the University of Bologna, as well as Mr. Laporta, and the Spanish, the Valencia University. I would like to show you very briefly our platform. Then there is also the possibility to study certain subjects in detail, because we wanted to give more levels to our training course. So in the first level, we want to talk about the main elements, and they are all translated in the 3 languages. Sorry, in the 4 languages, including English. Then there is another level which concerns links. Then there is an interactive activity that we included in the course, also because we wanted to make people awake. You know that if remote training courses are quite tiring, so it's always better to interact. Here we have the common beliefs about foods and nutrition, and participants give their own opinion. They give an answer to these common beliefs. And then in the units, we have short interactive activities to assess the learning of each activity. Then we also have some useful links. So partners searched for sources or other bibliography, and in this case it is possible to access to all of them by using this link. So you can have a basic training course that you can cover in just 8 hours, but you can also go further. And then there are some self-assessment questionnaires. Besides interactive activities that are a sort of game, there are also these self-assessment questionnaires to understand whether we have actually understood the topics of education, even because as a credit for continuous education in medicine. And then we also have educational modules, as Marco was saying. In Italy, for example, we interviewed Mrs. Giada Lullini, and she talks about case clinical studies, as Mr. Laporta was mentioning before. This is an extract. This is just to make you register. We are promoting our platform. You can still register until December. And then here we have in the room the president of the health professional boards. So this is a chance to spread our project, because this is a cross-border 2-year project, and it has to be used by the territories. And it is also fundamental that there are different disciplines inside this project. Marco, the floor is yours. Back to you. Yeah, I would like to talk about the topics. We've got Module 1, which concerns general knowledge on acquired disabilities, and there are different units. Users can study all of them during their education course. All the modules start with a short video. It is basically a cartoon, and it introduces the topic that is going to be tackled. This is an example.
The module describes international classification of function in disability and health according to all aspects of human functioning and disability. It discusses tools to measure health and disability across cultures according to World Health Organization, and presents those consequences of injuries that could affect a person's nutrition and quality of life. People suffering acquired disabilities are unfortunately at high risk of developing specific comorbidities. Some pathological conditions such as dysphagia, sarcopenia, and gastrointestinal disorders can be a direct consequence of the disability itself. Furthermore, acquired disabilities represent a risk factor for the development of non-communicable diseases such as metabolic syndrome, type 2 diabetes, osteopenia, cardiovascular and neurodegenerative diseases that further aggravate and worsen the health and quality of life of these people.
And all the videos, including the class videos, the lesson videos, the subtitles in the language that you want, like English or the 3 languages of the 3 partner projects. This is module 2, which concerns basic competencies on nutrition.
Food science can be considered everyday science, and this module will be dedicated to the acquisition of basic knowledge applicable to the whole population on the subject of nutrition. We will start from the description of the main concepts of nutrition biochemistry, such as the classification of nutrients and the description of their functions in the organism. The food pyramid will then be explained, and foods will be classified into groups. This will give a clearer understanding of a healthy diet and help prevent problems of malnutrition and being overweight. With a view to preventing malnutrition, the fight against fake news in the food sector plays an essential role, and some common false beliefs in this sector will be presented.
And then there are other 2 modules that blend together this information. So nutrition and acquired disabilities. And we can have a look at it.
For many, food is synonymous with pleasure and socialization, as well as being a basic need. People with acquired disabilities may encounter barriers in eating that worsen their quality of life, such as dysphagia or stress. It is important to know the specific nutritional needs in these patients and know how we can cover them from the professional field or detecting potential psychological issues related to food. Another aspect to be discussed will be the involvement of the family and caregivers in food. It is important that we all promote a safe, healthy, and pleasant diet to people, whatever their condition.
And then the last one that concerns preventive diet habits. And there are some subtitles as well.
Following a correct diet is a matter of choices. Food-based dietary guidelines are clear and precise documents, but each of us is called upon every day to make their own choices in the food sector. Having simple suggestions on how to organize meals, how often to eat certain foods, how to plan the shopping can help everyone to follow a healthier diet. Another important aspect that we will cover is strategies for. It is very important to know the possible tools and supports that can reduce the limitations caused by the acquired disability and the role of the profession in promoting autonomy. Finally, we will see benefits of physical activity with acquired disabilities.
These are the 4 presentation videos of our modules. When we developed the e-learning course, we involved some of you. We had to test it because we wanted to check its quality, and we wanted also to get feedback from users. Maybe can you tell us a couple of words? Yeah, and as far as multidisciplinarity is concerned, we are glad that all the professionals that we involved from the beginning, we took part in this project. There are some dietitians, nutritionists, then there are different professionals, and there are physiotherapists, doctors, speech therapists, nurses, experts in physical activities, psychologists, social workers. So all the professionals can benefit because they can fill up the gaps, and then they can really pass information about what they learned. And in the end, the beneficiaries are people with acquired disabilities. But these professionals first can work as a team, and also they can act on people with disabilities. But we will hear some professionals later on. I would like to move on. And then we asked 64 people out of 164 people to fill up a questionnaire. And people were really happy about our project. We asked different questions, like, do you think that the topics were interesting? More than 50% said yes. Do you think that the topics were covered in a very clear, complete, and sufficient way? And there were different marks from 1 to 10. 10 was the highest, 1 was the lowest. So also in this case, almost 50% of people were happy. And then there was another one that concerned the easiness to use of the platform. And 40% of people, 40% of the respondents said that it was easy to use this performance. So they really appreciated it. And then there was a final question that gathered all the previous questions, and it is the following. Do you think that the users' expectations were met? 86% of the respondents said yes. So we can say that we are happy of the work that we've done up to now. And we also met the professionals personally, so we were happy that they found our platform useful for their daily job. This is something absolutely important. We have concluded, and if you want, you can access the platform for free until the end of the year. Thank you.
Bene, ringraziamo la dottoressa Vignocchi.
So thank you, Mrs. Vignocchi, Mr. Malaguti, for this clear and short presentation. So the contents of the project. So we change a little bit the agenda because Mr. Laporta has to leave, so we will launch our roundtable, the importance of nutrition in people with acquired disabilities. So Mrs. Samprini, Morisi, or Francisco, if they want to come here, and Mrs. Franchini as well, while we have online Professor Piperno, and we would like to greet him. So we wait for all the participants to come here.
L'obiettivo di tirare un po' di fila di quello che può essere l'impatto che il progetto ha avuto su diverse figure professionali che vengono ad essere rappresentate qui dai convenuti.
So, what is the impact on the different professional profiles in order to have further improvement in the future? Professor Piperno, specialist in neurology, physical medicine, and rehabilitation from IRIX, the Institute of Neurological Sciences in Bologna, and the former director of IRIX. Good morning, Professor. First of all, thank you for being here. And I would like to remind one thing, that the name of the project, NERD, is the result of Mr. Piperno's feedback inside. So thanks for helping us in creating this acronym. The name we like a lot. What we wanted to ask you, because you have been involved from the beginning to the different conception phases of this project. And with us, you helped us and had the idea of linking these two topics, so nutrition and rehabilitation, because nutrition is rehabilitation and vice versa. And I would like to say it clearly, because there's no boundary between these two subjects. And how did you understand that there is this need of dealing in a scientific way the different topics and the tools you have heard and added on the project platform, in your opinion, can they be useful for training and upgrading of professionals in your area of action, your scope of action? Thank you, and sorry for not being there for my voice. Hope you can hear me properly.
Come siamo arrivati al tema di mettere insieme nutrizione e riabilitazione?
So how did we put together the two topics, nutrition and rehabilitation? So we were kind of reading the limit. I'm in charge of neurological rehabilitation for more than 40 years, in particular dealing with the most severe disabilities. And in fact, for the word rehabilitation concerned problems with patients having problems in swallowing, and concerned two different types of professionals, so the dietitian and the logopedician. They were helped and they were called in order to react to these problems. So we wanted just to maintain the body weight So the need was not to lose weight. That was the clinical practice and the hospital practice. So the clinical practice was to double check that the patient was not gaining weight. And so if you consider a patient in a chronic phase at home, we suggested him go and see a dietitian, because you need to, adjust your food intake and to start being on a diet. And so this was the initial reality. And then the presentation of Dr. Laporta showed how much we are far away from the clinical interpretation. And they matched with the widespread practice. Of course, today the situation improved, also concerning the ability to understand how nutrition topics are very important, and they also concern the evolution of prognosis. And for us, this was a long and twisted road. At the beginning, we first understood that the patient goes through different phases. Could be about his clinical history. So, for example, in case of trauma, for some period, this is a manifestation that the patient can have. So it's like a metabolic signature changing over time. Or, for example, the different sepsis and the different metabolic needs. But it also represents a different phase of the person. So, at a certain point, we wondered, but if the patient is in bed due to clinical and caring needs, or maybe the patient is having a moderate physical exercise during the rehabilitation or after hospital discharge, and so maybe the patient is going back to, take sports classes. So all this has to do with a different nutritional behavior, so different types of food intake in the patient, and it also linked to the consciousness of the fact that nutritional aspects have to do with the well-being and health of the person. So over time, I understood more and more than that the nutritional profile in patients is something that needed to be further customized and adapted to the specific characteristics of patients, not just for metabolic indexes. It could be, for example, relations, behaviors, the social aspects. And then there was another aspect, and we started to wonder, and this had to do with the evolution of clinics rehabilitation, because now rehabilitation is happening outside the hospital as an observation point, and so opening up the eyes on what's happening. And so we understood that people suffering from brain damages, they have stories that can search through that acquired disability is just an event, and then that you have to adapt to the new situation. That's not true.
I dati di letteratura ce lo dimostrano, anche l'esperienza clinica ce lo dimostra, anche dopo 5
So the clinical experience demonstrated after 15 years there might be evolution, even improvement, but also sometimes a worsened situation. So the risk for dementia after severe brain damage is higher. But there is this mechanism of making inflammation chronic, and we demonstrated it. And even after 40 years, this mechanism of chronic neuroinflammation is there. And we saw it in Mr. Laporta's presentation, interleukin, one of the potential markers of this condition, and many more. And there is a link between the inflammation and the neuroplasticity. So this contrast, contrasting recovery, and this evolution exists. It doesn't concern all the patients, of course. It concerns 20%, but it's not a little percentage. And then there is another end that we had to consider. So until today, we consider nutrition as, you know, the protection of well-being, of balance, nutritional factors. And so probably this awareness that acquired disability is not just an event requiring you to manage adaptation, you know, the adaptive process, but it evolves over time. That's why nutrition can be considered as a long-term therapeutical source with an anti-inflammation activity. So it helps us in dealing with the care. And so here we see this aspect, so we see this link between nutrition, psychological, social,
che non è più la riabilitazione clinica in senso stretto, ma diventa...
So in the long period, it's not just a clinical rehabilitation, but it's like a coaching about life quality. Thank you.
Nasce da una necessità reale.
So it's a real need, and you highlighted the clinical aspect. If we remain in the field of disability, I would like to ask Mrs. Semprini, a physical therapist and teaching coordinator of the physiotherapy classes in the University of Bologna. So in planning data, which is a degree, training professionals who can treat this topic of disability. How can you deal with, how do you deal with the nutrition topic? Do you need to be further trained in the e-learning pathway? An e-learning pathway, could it be a solution for your professionals? Good morning. I have a severe sore throat, but I have a negative PCR, and I made it also this morning. So, and I would like to thank those who invited me at the beginning of this process, because I was really interested as a trainer in charge of the Bologna unit, and I wanted to develop this course under two different perspectives: as a professional, so physical therapist, because I remain a professional physical therapist, and also to understand for students having a different school background and nutritional aspects in our course of studies are not so investigated. So our degree, university degree, is included in a different category. So despite this difference, after listening to Professor Piperno, and he was also one of my professors when I was a student, so thank you, because you opened up my view concerning the importance of inflammatory mechanisms and the importance of considering all the nutritional aspects in relation to the programming of the rehabilitation pathway. And so I wonder if in our teaching curricula there were enough information. So in reality, our programs concern only, the first year of study where you deal with science subjects, basic science subjects. So I wonder if it was an additional study opportunity, because university in general is aiming at developing cross-sectoral skills, even outside the healthcare world. So it is very important to have all these skills. And this is even more important in the healthcare system, because I thought that one training like this can be useful, offering an elective opportunity. It can be hardly included in our curriculum because it's really, really committing and demanding. Something that we have annual examinations and communication given to students compared to student satisfaction. It remains one of the main criticisms of the 3-year degree, university degree, because they are specific.
Se si può un pochino implementare questo argomento. Gli studenti hanno qualche conoscenza all'interno del nostro corso di studi, più per quanto riguarda quello che è l'allenamento allo sforzo, quindi la conoscenza nutrizionale in relazione alla predisposizione.
So with regard to
allo sforzo, quindi quello che è l'ambito della medicina sportiva. E invece per me è stato molto interessante.
And so to me it was really important. And there were different disciplines, for example, the importance between nutrition, relation, and inflammations. So if it is included as an elective training of cross-sectional skills, then it could be a good proposition, because they are really focused on nutrition and disability. There is a problem, and I'm referring to you, because remote learning are not recognized in the same way as on-site training. So that's why I thought that maybe it could be proposed as a cross-sectional skill, like a complementary subject. It is very important as a physical therapist, because I think that this could be the ideal course for even a professional therapist. Thank you very much. We agree on this. So the idea of proposing this e-learning course as soft skills to different universities curricula. And of course, we were kind of afraid of listening to the annual, examination. We know what it's all about. So it's an attempt that we can do. And if many people are involved, then this proposition is going to be accepted. So we gave the floor to the professionals in physical therapy. Let's see now the opinion of dietitian Laura Morisi, coordinator of the health local unit in Bologna and lecturer at training courses for social workers and family caregivers, president of the Dietitian Register of Bologna. And then you will explain probably the acronyms, TSRM, PS, TRP. It's like Hungarian, you don't have any vowels. So I would like to have the other point of view. So a dietitian already has a cultural background in nutrition, applied nutrition, and the dietitian subject. So but do you think that the participation in the training can promote the multidisciplinary approach? Are there any new aspects in the e-learning that can be, attractive, sexy to your students? Compared to the different roles, the dietitian needs more information and knowledge. And of course, it has to include disability in its curriculum because it's a general subject in the basic pathway, while it is specifically conceived in master's, so an advanced training where you identify the different levels of disability. And the dietitian in its study pathway receives information that are linked to different tables concerning energy consumption, intake, lipids during sports activities. But what I wonder in taking part in this course is what are the activities, what is the motion commitment in rehabilitation technique, because I'm not aware of them. And here I would like to go back to the hospital area. The acute phase and the chronic phase in the territory, in particular in Bellaria Hospital, you have the rehabilitation unit, and you try with clinicians, with the experts of nutritional science, the high-level part concerning nutrition in disability and neurological rehabilitation. Professor Laporta's case study was really interesting because it's an extreme case, but it was concerning anorexia and so eating disorder, an extreme eating disorder. So this means that our patients shall not be seen only from a dietitian point of view, but they have their story, a story about eating disorder, creating bone frailty. And so we have to discuss about it. So the physical therapist moving this person, the physical therapist, of course, suffering from a trauma, for sure, it's a person very slim and frail, so we will see on the territory as well, and we need this caregiving profiles forming a real team. And then we can talk about in terms of register, it has a specific acronym, and it's hard to pronounce, but we can call it as a caregiving registers, because we wanted to include it under the same register 19 professionals coming from the healthcare sector, grouping all this scope of actions, areas of action, dealing with different aspects of health, and they must be familiar with common languages. I liked this training a lot, and it does not consider only the acute basis that can be found in essays, but it went beyond, because it included those areas of caregiving, in particular when patients are at home, in order to give tools to caregivers, because once the patient is discharged when home, they feel alone. So the will is to train all the professionals, all the caregivers, so that they can speak the same language, because otherwise the dietitian talks about proteins, maybe the physical therapist talk about exercises, the speech therapist talk about swallowing, and then you have a hard time in combining these different suggestions on the same patient, because this patient has several comorbidities.
Veramente, dottoressa, mi sembra che
Thank you very much. I believe that the concepts are very clear, and there is a synergy of visions. We all need to implement our knowledge, including myself, because there are no education courses, no professional courses that cover all the cases that we should deal with on a daily basis. Therefore, we need an advanced education or training. Of course, it is not a university degree, but we could still fill up the training gaps to make each professional more complete. This is my point of view. And I believe that our guests from Spain, and I would like to call Mrs. Paola Sabater, psychologist responsible for the European projects from Nueva Opción, and Mr. Francisco Quiles, the director of Nueva Opción, can tell us their point of view on their participation to this project.
To participate, to join us in this project, and how has the problem experienced in your personal Spanish context?
Adesso chiedo,
You can answer in Spanish.
no, chiedo in sala se avete bisogno della traduzione dall'inglese, perché nel caso mettiamo la traduttrice. Se c'è qualcuno che ha bisogno della traduzione dall'inglese all'italiano può alzare la mano, allora facciamo senza traduzione, così non allunghiamo i tempi, va bene?
You can answer both in English or in Spanish, as you prefer.
Grazie.
Bueno, primero che nada grazie a tutti per essere arrivati a questo giorno, grazie all'organizzazione e soprattutto...
Thank you very much for the organization, for inviting me here, and I would like to thank Amici di Luca as well as Maria and Fulvio. Unfortunately, my Italian is over. I'm sorry, I cannot speak Italian, and my English is horrible. But at least my Spanish is very good.
En España viven 435.000 personas afectadas por lo que llamamos daño cerebral adquirido, DCA. Son más de 120.000 personas afectadas al año. Son personas con necesidades sanitarias y asistenciales especiales. Personas que necesitan vivir una vida digna. Es por eso por lo que nacen asociaciones como Nueva Opción y Amici di Luca.
I don't want, maybe the Lithuanian partners want to, yeah, okay. Paco is saying that 435,000 of persons in Spain are affected by brain damage, and it's like 120,000 per year. So they have special health needs, and they deserve to live with dignity. So that's why associations as Nueva Acción and Amici di Luca are needed in the society.
Uno de los fines principales de Nueva Opción, y creo que también de Amici di Luca, es trabajar para mejorar la vida de las personas con TCA. Pero también es verdad que es muy importante fomentar la investigación para mejorar todos aquellos tratamientos, políticas sanitarias y sociales que vayan a mejorar lo que comentaba, la calidad de vida de las personas. Por ello, para Nueva Opción es muy especial participar en este proyecto de ENEADI. Ya empezamos a participar con el proyecto UCA. Es nuestra primera vez como partner para ENEADI y creo que esto nos va a permitir crecer como entidad.
Okay. Take part in actions that are addressed to improve the quality of life of people with acquired brain damage, and also to participate in and promote research addressed also to improve the quality of life. It's our first time as official partners of a European project, but we have worked before with some of the partners as in other projects, but only as associated partner in Luca project.
Participar en ENEADI nos permite compartir experiencias y buenas prácticas, que creo que es fundamental para mejorar el día a día de las personas que atendemos. ¿Y por qué pensamos que es importante participar en un proyecto sobre alimentación y nutrición? Bueno, pues porque conocéis que el daño cerebral adquirido es el conjunto de consecuencias que origina sobre todo un ictus. Hoy en día el ictus es el causante del 90% de las personas que padecen un daño cerebral adquirido.
Okay, so it's very important to share experiences and best practices, as an ENEADI project give us this opportunity, and the main cause of brain damage is a stroke.
Y una de las consecuencias que ocurren tras padecer un ictus es la disfagia u otros problemas asociados a la alimentación o a la deglución, que afectan lógicamente a la vida de las personas, pero también afectan a las familias de estas personas. Nosotros actualmente atendemos en Valencia a 70 personas con daño cerebral todos los días, y para ello contamos con 44 profesionales de distintas profesiones. Las personas que atendemos, lógicamente, presentan problemas graves como consecuencia del daño cerebral adquirido. secuelas físicas, cognitivas, conductuales, comunicativas y todas las que comentaba anteriormente, como disfagia, problemas de control de impulso, la alimentación, diabetes, etcétera, que han explicado anteriormente el doctor y los compañeros del proyecto ENEADI.
Okay, acquired brain, the brain damage has a lot of outcomes, physical, about communication, lack of control, impulses control, diabetes, and so in Nueva Opción we take care of 70 people with acquired disabilities, and we have 44 professionals for different disciplines, and other problems linked to the brain damage.
Por tanto, que nuestros profesionales se formen, y no solamente profesionales como puede ser la logopedia, profesionales como puede ser la fisioterapia, la terapia ocupacional, trabajadora social, educadores, auxiliares, incluso el conductor de nuestra carrochina, de nuestra furgoneta. Es importante porque vamos a poder evitar situaciones muy problemáticas y graves como pueden ser atragantamientos, o vamos a poder actuar cuando tengamos un conductual que tenga que ver con el tema de la alimentación. Por lo tanto, creo que esto es suficiente como para remarcar la importancia de que nuestra entidad forme parte de este proyecto y, lógicamente, le dé toda la validez a todo aquello que se vaya a hacer durante... Bueno, acabamos ya, ¿no? El proyecto finaliza ahora. Y solamente agradecer que hayamos podido participar con vosotros en estos 3 años ya de proyecto. Muchas gracias.
Okay, so for these reasons, training of all the professionals working with people with acquired brain damage is, of course, very important for Nueva Opción. Not only speech therapists and educators, social workers, but also, for example, the driver, because as we have a lot of problems like dysphagia, impulse management, we have also problems with emotional eating, they have problems with chewing and swallowing, so the professionals need to be able to quickly act in case of choking, and not only like in punctual moments, but also in a long-term way. They need to change some unhealthy habits with the users and so on. So of course, NEAD project makes a lot of sense in our context. Paco, thank you all of you and all the partners for this project.
Thank you, Paula. Thank you, Paco, for your contribution. And torniamo all'italiano.
Let's move back to the Italian. Mrs. Cristina Franchini, the educator of the social cooperative per Luca and coordinator of the project Dopo. You are in touch with patients in their daily routine. What was your rebound? What is your impression? What's your point of view? Did you perceive that there are any problems concerning nutrition, especially when patients go back home, and this is a very delicate phase? This project was designed and developed for professionals working in this sector. But in your opinion, in the upgrade of the project, do you think it could be targeted to those people who are in charge of these patients? If we could propose such a training course, an update training course for family members or caregivers, do you think this is something feasible and useful as well? Well, yes, absolutely. Because we deal with people suffering from a coma, and then we deal with their family members. And we know that we need to increase the knowledge about this topic, as well as to increase competencies and skills, whether they are theoretical or practical, and they are skills on nutrition. Because acquired disabilities become the daily routine for these people. So it is important to focus on education and training. And then we need to train ourselves continuously, because we need to understand the needs, the requirements of these people. And we also need to understand the problems of these people. Also concerning malnutrition, for example, or the other problems that we've heard of today, including health diets, complications, and so on. It is important to recognize all of these topics so that we can create specific training courses for professionals. And this could be very helpful for working in different clinics. Bologna is a hub where we collect and analyze needs and requirements. And we personally are in touch with health professionals. So the Amici di Luca project has been there for a few years, and it is a project that allows us to be in touch with professionals working in the health sector. For this reason, I am very glad to give my availability to participate in focus groups or education activities concerning these topics. I now need to register your platform into your platform. It is definitely a very interesting topic. I can improve my skills, and if I improve my skills, I can meet the requirements of the people I am in touch with on a daily basis. Thank you very much, Mrs. Branchini. I would like to say something else. This course doesn't aim at creating skills concerning nutrition or physiotherapy or disabilities, but the idea is to increase the level of understanding of all the professionals so that they can detect the first alert signals, so that patients can be transferred to the correct professional. It is important to create a network of professionals. The more we increase our competencies, the more we can understand which one is the right professional we have to refer to with the purpose of improving the health status of our patients. Also, when our patients come back home. So, to conclude this round table, I would like to give the floor to Mrs. Maria Baccari. She is and she's been dealing with this project. So what's your point of view? Well, I followed this project, and I am very glad that this project was implemented, because this is a very hot topic, yet very challenging. And to be honest, I have no training in the health sector. Or I don't have any university health training and education, but I've been in touch with associations like Amici di Luca, and I've been in touch with people with acquired disabilities for many years. So I am very glad that your project focuses on the significance, on the importance of nutrition for people with acquired disabilities. So I am very glad that we managed to implement such a project together with our friends from Spain. Is it true, Paco? Yeah. And we still wanted to go along this pathway. And we absolutely need to follow this direction. We need to make other steps forward. There are many keywords that are so important, and they came in my mind today. So it's education, for example, or continuous education, correlation and synergy among different fields of healthcare. And I also have to say that nutrition or diet education were not mentioned a lot in the course, in the pathways launched by Amici di Luca. So I am very glad that there were some people who decided to study these topics, highlight some aspects concerning the speech delivered by Mr. Laporta, because I am very convinced that it is very important to take care of these patients, of patients who are inside the Casa dei Risvegli. We have to analyze everything starting from the post-acute phase. Mr. Laporta said that it is important to have a balanced nutritional process. And this is something that must be understood by families as well, because families have to deal with lots of different problems. For example, lack of consciousness, lack of mobility because of the damage. So sometimes they do not really care about nutrition. But according to my experience, I have to say that I saw numerous cases of people who went to the Casa dei Risvegli in the post-acute rehabilitation. I'm thinking about some very young people. I remember a guy who was 17 years old, or a guy who was 22 years old, and they lost 30 kilos in the first phase. They were very young people, so they lost 30 kilos. They were very skinny when they came to our clinic. They came from other Italian hospitals. for rehab, and their situations were absolutely bad. They suffered from malnutrition, and these effects on the whole recovery. We understood that there could be some infections, some neurological disorders as well, some breathing disorders as well. So I believe that the clinical case that was illustrated before was very interesting. It made me think about lots of other situations that we see in post-acute phase that are very complex. And secondary damages, as compared to the brain damage, become primary damages if then correctly. Then, in the long term, I agree with my colleague Cristina Franchini. We know that when they have to go back home, family members need to have aids, services for maintenance, physiotherapy, speech therapy. And maybe they don't really know that in actual fact they should also collaborate with nutritionists or dietitians. So it is important to take this aspect into consideration in periodical assessments, and there should be consultations later on. I remember that there are also some people suffering from bulimia. There are people who maybe come back home and they can walk again, but then they've got damages in terms of their behavior. They've got their psychological aspect that is very modified, so they keep on opening the fridge, they keep on searching for food. This is one of the most common situations. And then there is another idea that I would like to share with you. I like the concept of defragilization. I didn't even know that that word existed. I believe that we need to do something more, not just rehabilitation. We need to do our best so that we are less fragile when there are acute processes with the brain damage or normal processes like aging. I am still quite old, but you know, we need to consider these aspects so that the fragility, which is typical of the situation that you're living, must be supported by competencies and skills of professionals like you, the people who are here today. So it is important that this project is a European project. We still have a lot to do. Thank you very much. Thank you, Maria. You mentioned nutritional aspects. You mentioned a guy who was just 17 years old. He lost 30 kilos. So I can understand that there are some rebound pathologies with these patients. So these patients may also become obese. They start from one situation and they reach the opposite situation.
cultura, è questo che ci confrontiamo, nel senso che a differenza di
Nutrition also means culture, because despite other treatments that can be prescribed, accepted or not, nutrition has a strong impact both on ethics, ideas, religions, vegetarians, and so this beliefs and approaches must be included in a treatment accepted and shared by the patient. And so by referring to this European project, we have to say that nutrition is culture, and we have to consider not just the food habits or the marketed products constantly changing, but also we need to focus on culture. We cannot ask a Muslim to ask the same thing as an Indian person eats. And so the other consideration is this, because food also means relations with the relatives and the family. That's the only treatment that you can practice alone. And so physical therapy is something that can be delegated, while food is the treatment that mothers, fathers, relatives want to administer. So considering this value, it is not easy to, integrate it in care customization. We had some challenges in case of a child admitted in ICU after a car accident, and it was really difficult to explain in scientific terms what a child can eat or not. He was in coma because he was young and he did not speak, and we had to explain to his mother the different problems. And so dealing with this family is not easy. So by, starting from this common language, we need to provide tools, we need to provide reassurances to family, because the use, for example, of natural mixtures administered by probes and given by the family, they have no therapeutical factors. It's just based on this relation. So we have to consider that we have several patients and the relatives around the patients. So thank you very much. We are running late, so I would like to thank all the professionals in this roundtable. We could keep on talking about these topics for hours, but at least we got some food for thought.
L'importanza delle pratiche relative alla qualità della vita agli standard alimentari. Bozza del documento del progetto.
So, draft document.
Good afternoon, maybe. I do not know. Yes, saving your time according to the schedule planned for our meeting. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for this really interesting event. It's very significant for our project. And now I want to present you some short draft of recommendations. And another my wish is to ask kindly you if you will have or if you will see some other things that could be added. Please inform us. And I think that all suggestions could go to Elena as a leader of the project. And we will pay attention, of course. Yeah. This is in very short, and I am not will repeat because this beginning was already told by Marco and Elena. So let's go directly to the recommendations. Yeah. So, to whom it could be useful? So first of all is addressed to professionals who are working with the people with acquired disabilities. What? Okay. Oh, okay. Thank you. So then, resulting from the disabilities that are resulting from traumatic events. Then it's very important to notice that the sedentary conditions of these subjects require special attention to healthy behavior and styles related to nutrition and diseases. So it's a very important point of prevention. The third one is that it's very important assessing and the opportunities of their role toward the quality of life and good nutrition practices, in particular in chronic phases of the disease. Yes, the goals of the project. Yes, because these recommendations comes from the goals. So first of all is to let involved professionals and stakeholders improve their knowledge, because it's very important to share the knowledge with the stakeholders and policymakers of good practices in European level related to quality of life, well-being and nutrition practices in favor of people with acquired disabilities. The second one goal is to start up a methodological renew of new training path into teaching in innovative, flexible, and open ways. The e-learning platform was very widely presented to you by our colleagues. Then the third one is to raise awareness among partners in all institutions. What we have deals in the area of life quality of persons with acquired disabilities. Yeah, okay, so then outcomes. So there was already demonstrated these outcomes, so I am again will skip this one. Yeah, and target audience. It may be, I would like, because it's the policymakers in municipal, governmental, and European Union levels, institutional reference, and local stakeholders. Then professionals. This is a lot of professionals who could be interested in these learning materials, providing the support and services for the people with acquired disabilities. And of course, family members and caregivers who also are for them it's very important to know and to have developed their skills how to take care about their family members. Yes, we analyzed, of course, a lot of information, statistical data, and let's say the statistical data about the new cases of traumatic injuries in Spain was presented. Of course, we will renew, and we know already the data in Italy, we know data in Lithuania, so based on these tragic events in every family who faced with this, we see that the number of people who really need not one day help, they need all their life help, increasing every year. Also, we have then analyzed the situation in educational system, how many universities or other education institutions prepares the specialists and professionals directly for the work with this target group. And yes, we see that only 1%, including training about nutrition of people with disabilities. So it's really evident the need of education, because we have only 1% among our analyzed data. So now, what the benefits? And this is first of all for professionals. Through training practice, we could improve first, improve knowledge of professionals, improve professional competences, improve dialogue between professionals and in different disciplines. So, as all of us working in multidisciplinary teams, so for us it's really very important. Then, for the benefit for disabled quality of life of the patients, improve the family life quality, reduce the risk factor for chronic diseases, reduce the risk factors for rehospitalization, because it's really, as you know, it's a problem, and reduce the cost of healthcare system and social insurance. It is really important talking, let's say, in the governmental level, the strategies and the laws and legislation. Then for society, public and private organizations, so the support of social inclusion of people with disabilities and reduce the cost of healthcare system and social insurance. Yes, it's the same. So concretely, we ask policymakers to first become aware of the importance of improving multidisciplinary competences of professionals involved in managing disability, set the ground of disseminating this training in different professional educational contexts, and support concretely the created learning platform. So we did everything, but now it must have continuing and must be supported and assessed by all the professionals, stakeholders, and policymakers. Thank you.
Thank you, Liuda. Mi sostituisco alla professoressa per presentare l'ultimo
I would like
intervento.
to present the last speech before the Q&A session. So, Fulvio De Nigris. Thank you, Elena. Do you have the remote controller? I would like to thank Futura and Elena for involving the association Amici di Luca. I would like to thank Silvana Relia from the University of Bologna. I would like to say a couple of things about the future of this project. I would like to tell a couple of things to our international friends. I would like to thank Luca because everything started from here. And value to him. And we're going to work in this way in the future as well. And this project is an innovation because it is basically a combination between a rehabilitation project and a rehab and family project. And we put people inside therapies, at the core of therapies, as well as their families. We talked about 500 people who have been taken into our clinic, and we've got different pathways. Some of them are health-based, some others are not, but they really make the difference. And we shared some common aspects with our Spanish friends. These are the workshops, and these are some of the activities that we have carried out. We know that 70% of people go back home with a good degree of self-sufficiency, and 25% do not go back with are not self-sufficient, but we still help them. So coma to us is a transition moment. But now let's talk about our project. Here I would like to mention the book written by Silvana Reglia for our association. And this is a very beautiful book which gathers together the articles of our magazine. And the book is called Giving Food to Your Brain. And we analyze different types of food that can be useful for people, including people with disabilities. In the Casa dei Risvegli, we really pay attention to nutrition. We heard a very good speech by Fabio Laporta. And I would like to talk about Luigi. He's part of the group Terrare. It is one of the workshops that we proposed. He had a coma a few years ago. At a certain moment, he shouted, "Pure!" and nobody could understand what it was. But pure in Italian means mashed potato. And he wrote that in this book. He said, it was in my mind, it was a word, but also a feeling, a taste, a pleasure. It was my favorite dish before the accident. And when I got up, when I awakened from the coma, the first thing that I said was puree, which is a mashed potato. It was such a great satisfaction when I could eat it. It was something that stayed in his memory. He had it in his mind and he let it out. Mashed potato was his favorite dish. And Eddie is this project, and within this project we carried out this survey on caregivers promoted by Dr. Silvia Santini. It involved 62 people. This was an online survey with 5 sections. So questions on what the interviewer believes to be a correct eating habit, questions on general knowledge on food and nutrition, on disabilities, on assisted people, and general information on interviewees. So this is a survey that involved other stakeholders as well, not just Casa dei Risvegli. And here are the results. 47% of the respondents showed a low score as far as their knowledge is concerned concerning a correct nutrition, with a score lower than 10 on a scale that goes from 0 to 18. And 42% 60% shows a lack of general knowledge on food and nutrition, but despite that, quite a high percentage of the respondents, between 80 to 90%, believe that nutrition is very important for the people who are assisted. And for this reason, it is very important to have the right knowledge to look after these people. So there is the desire of knowledge. You have already mentioned it. And then there was a note from the researcher, and basically he said that had a low education level. In the conclusions, it is important to highlight that 60% of the respondents stated that they make the food for the people that they assist. So there is a discrepancy between the complexity of the tasks required of the caregivers on a daily basis, choosing and preparing food for people with disabilities, and their actual skills in nutrition. We know that we have certain abilities and certain skills, but I worked with this association, and I managed to increase my competencies as far as nutrition is concerned for these kind of people. So there are people who are more competent than me. I'm not saying that to Mr. Piperno, but anyway, jokes apart, we need to recognize that the experience of family members is a competence we need to take into account. So the intention of NED2 for the future, and Silvana Relia in the debate earlier spoke about the future. The idea is to propose a new NED2 project that aims to provide practical tools to better address the issue of how to feed their caregivers in their daily lives. Sorry, not the caregivers, but the patients. Artificial nutrition could be something given for granted, but in actual fact, it's not. Yesterday, I called Monica, who is the wife of now our ex-patient, Hermano, because I wanted to know about his current situation. And besides the pathology, the complexity of the rebound, there is a training that is quite lacking, quite missing. So in the future, we should include artificial nutrition. Let's see the last two slides. We would like to conclude. You can move on, Andrea.
Ok. No, perché per esempio il discorso del passaggio dai pasti cremosi ad un'alimentazione
mista. Talking about creamy meals or mixed meals. By the way, this is the drama group. It is worth, it's our motto. Just a second, let's go back to the previous slide. So, against abandonment and therapeutic desistance. Cecilia Morosini used to say that people that cannot heal can still be treated. And nutrition is very important as a topic for families. There are some brain injuries that require a specific management of the patient, and family members need to be supported as well. Thank you very much. I would like to thank Neil Banca because this is a bank that allowed us to host the meeting here. I would like to give the floor to Professor Relia. I would like to thank the bank for giving us this meeting room, and I would like to thank all the technicians that allowed us to have perfect remote connections. We didn't really know that this was going to be possible, but you did an amazing job. Anyway, if you have any questions, please let me know. There are, of course, inputs, feedbacks. I would like to say something about I am a doctor and I deal with artificial nutrition for the health unit of Bologna. Our task is to work in the territory to deal with artificial nutrition, and we are really interested in having a better relationship with the family members or to create pathways with family members. This is something that we are already doing. We also have a network of nurses that work directly in the houses, and I am very glad that in this meeting you had the focus. You had the chance to focus on artificial nutrition. This is a very important topic. Everybody is doing their part, and we're all interested in other people's jobs as well, whether they are caregivers or physiotherapists, dietitians, and so on. So we need to pay attention on these topics as well. This is a new point of view for us. Even though we see people with disabilities on a daily basis, sometimes we don't have the knowledge that we saw today. So thank you very much for this knowledge, for the knowledge that you gave us today. Thank you, Doctor. This is a way to acknowledge our project. Of course, we can make everything perfect, we can improve things, and I believe that thanks to your contributions, feedbacks, and comments, NRD 2 can be created again if Mr. Malaguti wants to go on, because I will soon retire. I've been working for 40 years for the University of Bologna, but you know, the soul of the research never dies. There is a retirement, but this is a retirement from bureaucracy, but it is not a retirement from research, from the engagement in projects like this one. So thank you very much for your contribution and for your feedback. Do you have any other questions? Good morning, everybody. I would like to thank you for involving us. Also, of my colleague Sarah, thank you for involving us in this project. As to the NED 2, would it be interesting to do an e-learning or an experiential e-learning part? Because I was talking to my Spanish colleagues before. We talked about the orange test, and we understood that there were new tools and new methods to face problems. So maybe we could have some hands-on activities in the NED 2. NED, unfortunately, was carried out during the COVID pandemic, and we had several limits as far as the in-place activities are concerned. This is the first or the second meeting that we have in place. Well, all the previous ones were organized remotely. We had an experience in Valencia with you, and everybody was really happy about the experience. It could be interesting to replicate the experience to in all the countries that are members of the project. And remember that physical activities are essential, especially in the post-rehabilitation. We need to have experts who know how to provide physical rehab for these patients. So I am very glad of this idea that you launched. We can have some hands-on activities. And thank you very much for also your colleague. If there are no other questions, we can conclude today's session. We had an amazing morning. I would like to give the floor to Mrs. Gnocchi. Thank you very much from the bottom of my heart for your collaboration, for being here today. Sorry for my Spanish. I would like to thank Professor Relia, as well as all the people who are connected remotely, also from Sweden, and all the project partners. And we're going to conclude the project today in the afternoon. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the day, and goodbye.